Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode 4 of the Marvel Annotated podcast. On this episode, we'll go over the casting of Ms. Marvel, Jamie Foxx returning as Electro, kind of a roundup, like a State of the Union, if you will, on the Marvel's kind of multiverse, the thing they have going on here. And we'll wrap this episode up, our fourth segment, with a leak from the Eternals. Now, it's a pretty jam-packed episode, which always means hopefully a greater conversation. And if you're listening on YouTube, the first 3 segments are uploaded at 4, 6, and 8 p.m. Eastern Time, respectively, every Tuesday. And if you'd like to hear the full audio version, not broken up into segments, including the bonus 4th segment, follow the podcast on either Spotify or SoundCloud. Links will be in the description, or just feel free to search Marvel Annotated on Spotify or SoundCloud. And those go up at noon Eastern Time, same day, which for this podcast is Tuesday. But joined with me today, we have Jackson from Full Circle. So Jackson, I'll just give you opportunity to introduce yourself, say a little bit about you and Full Circle.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Josh. I'm Jackson Hayes. I'm editor-in-chief of FullCircleCinema.com. We cover a lot of the same things that H&E do, so we have a lot of crossover with that. Just happy to be here to talk about Marvel. Yeah,
so honestly, it's like the gift that keeps giving in terms of recent weeks with Marvel, because, I think in the general entertainment industry, obviously it's been kind of sparse with COVID and, it's been very slim pickings, you know what I mean? I think just a month ago, some of the biggest news was just like basically someone mentioning they were going to do reshoots, but like the way it was treated was as if like a new person was cast for a movie, or I think it was from Marvel, because they were really quiet until recent weeks. The only thing we had was like the Eternals dropping the in the Eternals, so it's just Eternals, and then some general casting grids, but basically people just kind of rehashing old rumors in old things. So it was getting kind of dry in the desert. But luckily, Marvel giveth and they taketh away, but they giveth again. So getting into the first topic, Ms. Marvel has officially been cast for the MCU. Probably one of the worst kept secrets was that Ms. Marvel was coming even before Kevin Feige did the announcement, just because they were going to do the the Inhumans. And that seemingly, I think, the initial rumor for Ms. Marvel came not too long after, just because she's like the most popular recent addition to the Inhumans, I think it's safe to say, and she's been in a lot of new media as well. But getting your opinion on it, what did you think when you first saw this casting?
Yeah, so going into this, people have been speculating for weeks about, who might be cast as Kamala Khan. And there was a lot of names going around of, Muslim actors and Pakistani actors. But it was kind of hard to get a read, because it was hard to tell what Marvel was going for. Like, are they going for a bigger name, like someone like in I know the actress from Blockers was a name that was thrown around a lot, and there was a few other ones that were prominent. But me personally, going into it, I wanted them to cast an unknown actor, and I think that it has a lot to do with the character of Kamala, and having just played with her extensively on the recent Avengers game. She's very much a fangirl, and she's a huge fan of these characters, and she enjoys the universe just as we all do. She's a point of view character in that way. That's kind of how they introduced her in the comics, and it was important to kind of capture that, and casting an unknown helps the audience go in with expectations of, oh, this person it could have been me. This person, much like Spider-Man, that person loved these characters and then joins a world full of them. That's something, a lot of kids dream about and a lot of fans want to do. So it's one of those things. It's like, I felt like it was important, and casting someone who could capture that was definitely of the essence. And I think they've done it. I mean, obviously I haven't seen her in anything. She is unknown for the most part. All that I was able to find was a little short film she directed on her Vimeo account, which was neat, but it didn't give me much about her as a person. But from what I've heard and what I've been able to read from what she's done, I think, she looks the part, and she sounds like she's the right kind of person to take on this role.
Yeah, I just realized we haven't even said her name yet. It's and correct me if I'm saying this wrong, because I have a bad knack for reading names wrong. It's terrible. I really wish like that was something I was better at. But it's Iman Vellani. Is that?
I believe that's how it's pronounced, Iman Vellani.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure, obviously, if someone's name, people get really sensitive about, understandably so.
And of course, yeah, but yeah, it's tough. There's no way there's no interviews with her, like, saying her name or anything like that, exactly. Or people saying her name. So it's just, we're kind of just, throwing it out there as we see it phonetically. But yeah, Iman Vellani, I think, is the correct pronunciation.
Yeah. And so for people that haven't been following with the series, they've actually been kind of busy with Ms. Marvel, I would say. Outside of this main casting, which is probably the most important casting, let's be honest. But, they had the showrunner announcement, the writers, directors for the show as well. Some supporting cast members were announced for it. So, they're definitely going full speed ahead now that the lead is actually cast. I mean, the showrunner is Bisha K. Ali. She's also the head writer and she's executively producing the series, but also she writes on Loki, which I don't really think means a connection between the Loki series and Miss Marvel as much as it's just Marvel double dipping probably with the writing rooms for, I guess, some maybe sense of continuity in terms of the quality. But, something I find really interesting with this character, you kind of touched upon it briefly, is she was she was the audience's eyes for the majority, you could argue, of the Avengers video game that came out recently, which I finally got a chance to play and finish. And I gotta say, Jackson, the whole time I was thinking, damn, this would have been such a great Avenger storyline for the MCU if whoever wrote this story, let's say, pitched it to Marvel, years ago.
It was a very deep story, and I was surprised at that. I know we discussed the beta a few months ago, but that was we've gotten the whole game and been able to play the entire story.
Exactly.
It was a lot deeper than I thought it would be, and there was a lot of emotion and actually legitimate heartfelt moments that I could see translating to a big screen story. Whoever wrote it and whoever pitched this idea it worked like gangbusters. And I was glad they were able to, and I was glad, before this announcement that I was able to get more exposure to a character like Kamala that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I don't read a lot of comic books. I know of the character, I know of her history and like where she came from, but I never really had much exposure to her until this game, and it was perfect timing because, I mean, man, she really brought it in the game, and I think they did a very good job portraying her. And if they do anything like that in the show, it'll work. It'll definitely work.
Yeah, and I think in hindsight, actually, it's really helpful that Marvel never, with Hank Pym, really went I guess they've done, the Giant Man route to a certain extent, but I think it's really good they never really hammered on it too much because I feel, I can't really get into it, right? Because it'd be a spoiler for the video game. But one of the biggest things with Miss Marvel is the fact that she kind of in like, I guess you could say a mixture of Mr. Fantastic and, Ant-Man, Giant Man, in terms of she can do like a form of shape-shifting where she can expand her mass essentially. And also kind of do it in like a stretchy way. So she can elongate her fist, if that makes sense. Or like stretch out her arms a bit for like a more ranged attack, if you will. That's kind of a part of her power set. I mean, if I get, let's say, let me just read the official character.
I think she's considered a polymorph. I think is what they refer to her as, at least her abilities. Is that like
Yeah, I mean, because I don't want to say the wrong thing to people. So, all right, officially, according to Marvel, her powers, abilities, etc., is morphogenetics, which means that her cells manifest mutable properties due to the fact that she is able to share her mass through time with different versions of herself. On a molecular level, Miss Marvel time travels whenever she uses her powers. Kamala can stretch, deform, expand, or compress her entire body or parts thereof into a shape she can imagine for a variety of uses. It's also called a polymorph as well. But I guess this is like the more detailed explanation of it. But it includes elongation, size alteration, and also appearance alteration, which means she can alter the appearance of clothing, her hair, things of that nature. And also, she can allow her body to glow a yellow energy when she uses her abilities, which is called, I guess, bioluminescence, which, that's not super fantastical. I don't think, real life animals do it on a somewhat regular basis. But what I find interesting about this, and I don't know if they'll ever go into the details of it, is this explanation for abilities is essentially the same exact explanation for how the Pym particles work in the Marvel universe, at least in the comics, in terms of like shifting mass across different dimensions and stuff like that. So that's kind of cool. Unintentionally kind of enters the multiverse, but that wasn't the goal of this segment. But I find that interesting. I wonder if they'll actually mention that. That's actually kind of cool, but I doubt it. It might be too complicated, too much. But I have a friend who is Pakistani, and she lives in New York, so I guess the general metropolitan area of Miss Marvel, even though I think she's more centered in Jersey. But I was telling her about the character and sharing the news when they did the casting announcement, and she was actually excited for the series. So I think this show and the cast has been pretty diverse as well to fit the comics. But I think a lot of people are going to gravitate to this show that maybe the common fan doesn't expect. And I think a good representation of the kind of audience pool we might see is, I don't know if you've ever watched this on Hulu, but Rami. It's a really great show.
I haven't, but I've heard of it.
Yeah, it's a really great show about, it's like semi-autobiographical because the main character is also like a producer and writer on the show, and his name is Rami. But his family is basically from Egypt, and his parents immigrate over to the United States. He's like a first generation member of the family, he and his sister. And basically it's about the hardships of growing up in, I guess, the United States during this time in a post 9/11 world, when you're Muslim, you know what I mean? Sometimes I say it wrong and I always get really embarrassed about it, but it's basically about that, you know what I mean? The hardships of that, while at the same time, trying to be faithful to like what you believe in, the culture, the religion, but at the same time, the contemporary, the temptations of that, whether it be vices of different kinds or, just wanting to, I guess, kind of be more secular, if that makes sense. I mean, So I'm really curious to see how this show will balance that. Obviously, it's going to be a bit different because Rami, he's like a grown up. So, he's doing things like drinking and smoking and all that stuff. I don't think Ms. Marvel's going to be doing that. But yeah, I mean, what do you expect from the show?
I think we're going to get a lot of looks at this universe from the outside. We've been with these characters from the inside, watching this film series go off through 23 films. A singular story, more or less, with side quests is really what it was. But we're going to get someone who experienced these things from the outside and then goes in, rather than being on the inside and then kind of, branching out. They're going to find their way into it through whatever scenario it is. And I think it's going to offer an interesting perspective that we haven't seen before. I mean, Spider-Man to a certain degree, but he's kind of, thrust into it. It seems more like she's going to find her way into it through, means of trying to do the right thing, whereas, Spider-Man was basically recruited in the MCU. He was kind of, forced into helping out Tony to take out Cap's team. But this will be different than that, I think. And I think we're going to see something I think it's going to be unique to this universe and definitely something we haven't seen to this point.
No, I mean, I agree. And I think a good preview potentially to her, not her importance, but, her kind of place in the Marvel universe, at least from the get-go. Definitely, I mean, it's smart they're doing the TV show to introduce her, but I think the Avengers video game did a good job of kind of showing what she brings to the table, like you said, in terms of like point of view from the outside. Versus the inside, which at this point is all we've really had, following Iron Man or Cap, or even, I mean, the most outside is probably Ant-Man, honestly. And, that was outside of, all of like 30 minutes. So Yeah, man. I think this is going to be a good show. I think it's going to be a refreshing, different show, which is nice because they'll have different kind of themes and topics they explore for the MCU. And I hope they don't rush it. You know what I mean? Like the whole superhero aspect. I hope they do give us a chance to really explore the outsider perspective of it. But also, I'm curious to see how they'll introduce the Inhumans, technically, or I guess reintroduce the Inhumans through Miss Marvel. I can't talk today, through Miss Marvel. So, but unfortunately, that's not the only topic or aspect of this topic we have. Did you hear about the leak that came out?
I did. I came across it just through the news. Through this, I saw that this potential actress leaked some of the script because she got into a little Twitter beef. Which don't do that. Definitely don't do that if you're vying for a job. But there was some interesting stuff in the leak from what I read.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll let you talk about it a little bit. I gotta say, I think this is one of those situations where, just like the person who's actually cast in the role, relatively unknown. So I think this might have been one of the drawbacks of fishing in that pond because, I mean, all these people are young. Like they're casting like 14, 15-year-olds to play Miss Marvel to fit the character's age and demographic, which is fine. But unfortunately, a 14, 15-year-old, like you said, involved in whether it's Twitter beef or just pushed enough to a certain extent, they sometimes they haven't been here before, and they'll maybe do something a little impulsive that they shouldn't, like post their NDA and pieces of a script. But Jackson, I'll let you talk a little bit about that.
Right. So I mean, we like I said, like you said, there's two sides of this coin. I was talking about earlier about how getting an unknown actress was something that I was really interested in for this specific story. Like you mentioned, there are drawbacks. They're impulsive, they're children, they don't really know how the business works yet. And so someone like this is able to just throw these script pages, which is something that Marvel definitely doesn't want to get out, never wants to get out, rarely ever does get out, onto the internet for people to see. And what the contents of them, they're not exactly out of the realm of what we would expect to see. This character, they have different names. One is Hannah, one is Jake. Obviously, I believe that's Kamala and her brother. I think that would be the duo that they're talking about. They just changed the names, obviously, in case of leaks like this. But now we know where they came from because of the person mentioned them. But she's talking about wanting to be a superhero and the struggles of who she is and how she goes about doing that. Because it's not everyone wakes up with super soldier serum and goes to fight a war. Everyone has a different journey into this, and they just want to do the right thing and help out. Like I'll mention again, like Spider-Man. They're similar in the way that they just want to do the right thing, whatever it is in whatever situation, and some people doubt that, have doubts about that. And that's mentioned in these script pages, that, having doubts and feeling like you don't belong is par for the course when you're dealing with something that, out of your realm. She, like we mentioned, she's going to be an outsider. And so coming into the inside is going to be a difficult transition. And that's just a lot of what the script is. And I was really pleasantly surprised when I saw this, because it's really what exactly I wanted them to touch on. These are deep moments between two characters that clearly know each other. Like I mentioned, it appears that they're siblings. And she wants to go on and be a superhero. And it's like you mentioned, it's refreshing. It's new. It's not something I've expected to see up to this point in the universe. And I'm just excited to see that this is the direction that they're going in.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing, all right, so I gotta say, right, we're not gonna we're not gonna link the leak script because I don't want Marvel snipers on us, because I'm sure they're all over this, even though it's still out there. I mean, there's only so much you can do, but knowing Marvel, they'll probably not even film this scene. It'll be something that they easily take out and they replace with something similar.
Absolutely.
Especially because they use different names, which maybe that is the protocol for the scripts anyways, just in case it leaks out. But
I mean, it's more than likely a screen test, which is the two actors come together. It was similar to what I know they released the featurette of Tom Holland and Chris Evans doing their screen test chemistry run kind of thing. It's something like that. They have two people bounce it off of each other to get the actress or actor they're trying to get to bounce some stuff off of them, and it's not anything, that out of the realm of normal. I mean, we see this stuff all the time. It's just they don't get leaked, and Marvel ones definitely don't get leaked.
Yeah, and I think so. The two biggest takeaways, well, three, I guess. So the first one, which is not a serious takeaway, is this person. They are so bad at. I feel bad. Were they like a 14-year-old girl or something that leaked this?
Yeah, a teenager for sure.
Yeah, the only thing that she was really proactive about blocking. First off, I don't even know why she posted the NDA, because she basically attempted to black out the entirety of it for the most part. So I don't even know what the purpose of posting that was. But everywhere else, she essentially tried. The only thing she tried covering up was her last name, which is understandable. And the other two takeaways I have is this screen test, and I don't really know again how much weight it actually has to the actuality of the Miss Marvel series, but they directly reference the Avengers. They also directly reference the Winter Soldier and a character called the Eagle, which I'm assuming is Captain America. Unless all of a sudden Sam Wilson will go by the Eagle, which is very interesting. But what I took away from this is, I don't know if it is hinting at the future of the MCU still having the Avengers, not a Secret Avengers, a New Avengers, and Ultimates, but just a continuation of the Avengers. I don't really know if that's what this kind of reveals inadvertently. I found that really interesting, but also it's cool to know that, I guess publicly, Bucky Barnes' name is actually the Winter Soldier. That's not just like a kind of low-key nickname that is used in the small circles of, Black Widow, Cap, stuff like that. But also it's interesting to note that since this does take place after the Falcon and Winter Soldier, this character Jake that mentions Eagle and the Winter Soldier, I guess Cap and the Winter Soldier, it'll be interesting to note if they're like a public duo in terms of like crime-fighting partners. You know what I mean? Like I find that really interesting since Jake is presumably just a normal teenager in New Jersey. He's not a superhero. And like you said, it'll be really interesting because we'll really get a good taste test on how much the public really knows about these superhero teams in terms of the members and their nicknames or code names or whatever. So I found that really interesting.
No, there's definitely some context here about where the universe is and where it's standing as of it's tough. But had this come out when it was supposed to, this news, it's very possible that this casting news was intended to come out here and now, but we would have already have seen Black Widow. We would have already have seen parts of, if not all of, Falcon Winter Soldier had the pandemic not hit, and we would be gearing up for Eternals right now. So there's some context in this that we may not have or know until we are able to see those projects, come next year now.
Yeah, that's true. Now, before we wrap it up, Jackson, you got to put the full circle team on this now, right? To look up, to investigate whether the future will just continue with the Avengers or if we'll get Ultimates or New Avengers or whatever.
It's been that's one of those stories that's been out there about, whether they're going after somebody like the Ultimates or they're trying to do the Champions now, which I know has Miss Marvel involved in it. Where does the future lie? Is it the Young Avengers? Is it the New Avengers? Is it there's endless possibilities right now, and it's so hard to nail it down because there's just so much fluid information, and leaks like this never happen. So Marvel's always been more tight-lipped than in any other studio we've dealt with. So honestly, it's all up in the air. I'm actually just thinking they'll probably just stay with Avengers at this point because it's such a well-known brand, but also if they are likely like going to do Young Avengers instead of Champions, it makes sense. If they're going to do Young Avengers, they'll just keep Avengers. And at the same time, I feel like Ultimates maybe was on the table, to be honest. It's a cool name, and I think it's a cool team concept, but unfortunately, the passing of Chadwick Boseman and the uncertainty of the Black Panther franchise at this point, that might have thrown that might have thrown that plans maybe off course a little bit versus just doing the safe option and just staying with Avengers. Just because, Captain Marvel and Black Panther were like the two co-leaders. So without such an important figure of that team, it might be kind of hard to execute it if they were trying to do a comic to movie translation, so to speak. Especially because they're going to do, they're setting up Spectrum already, and who knows if they're going to do Blue Marvel. So in Jackson, again, thanks for being on the episode. That
Man, I think this episode was pretty solid. We had 4 good topics and we had 4 good conversations, encompassing the episode. So for everyone, thanks for listening to the entirety of it. Again, if you want to listen to the entire audio, not split up into segments, and, when I say that, I mean including our bonus 4th segment, which in my personal opinion might have been our best segment, depending on your thoughts on the Eternals and everything. So go check it out. But that full audio is going to be on Spotify and SoundCloud respectively. And they publish at noon Eastern time, same day as these video segments, which is Tuesday. And the video segments go up 4, 6, and 8 p.m. Eastern time. So go check it out there. And also go check out Jackson and Full Circle. And Jackson, I'll yet again let you kind of wrap it up by plugging in your links.
Yeah, so check us out. Our work at FullCircleCinema.com, reporting every day. We're doing a review series this month with scary movies for Halloween. So be sure to check that out. You can follow us on Twitter at FullCircleCine, CINE. And you can follow me at JacksonHayes67 on Twitter. So yeah, check us out.
Sweet. All right, Jackson. Yeah, yet again, man, thanks for being on this episode. And everyone go check them out.